Hello, hello. Welcome to Maximus Live episode 62. It is the first week of spring, and with that comes rebirth, renewal, and an opportunity to have a fresh start. So, if you didn't achieve your New Year's resolutions this year, it's a good opportunity to have your second chance. And that's what we are here talking about at Maximus, which is taking a clean slate in terms of improving your health and functioning. So I'm your host, Dr. Cam Sapa. We do this show every single Thursday at 6 o'clock and provide live health coaching. My background is as a clinical psychologist and psychiatry professor. And as the CEO of Maximus, I help men optimize their testosterone levels with prescription pharmaceuticals, but also with health coaching around diet, exercise, sleep, focus, and talking about relationships. So we host this as a live call-in radio show. And we have it on Zoom, Twitter Spaces, YouTube Live, Instagram Live, and a host of other social media channels. So it's a great opportunity to take questions from our audience and our clients in terms of how they can improve their health and functioning. All right, looks like we already got our first caller. So let me admit them in. Hey there.
Hey, man.
How's it going?
It's good.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Well, thanks for joining us. We do this live call-in radio show every single week to just chat through questions, concerns that folks are having and see if we can help optimize them towards optimal health.
Yeah. Well, one, I imagine you see a bunch of people, so I don't want to assume too much. You did my podcast like a month ago.
And that's right.
I signed up last week. I just got my kit, but I think there was some confusion, so I messaged my doctor again. I wanted to make sure that it's been about 3 weeks since I did a TRT shot.
Yep.
I took a Clomid the week after, but that's when I was talking to you.
Right.
And then I haven't since, but then I was like, I'm on something called anastrozole for
an aromatase inhibitor.
Yeah, and then half a tablet once a week, and then a couple other supplements. And I was like, what do I need to make sure I stop before I actually do the finger prick test? So that was the main reason I jumped on today, because I sent the doctor a message, but I was like, I'll jump on here to see what I can learn.
For sure. So yeah, if you're on TRT, Clomid, or anastrozole, which is an aromatase inhibitor, you want to discontinue all three of those things for at least a week or two before taking the blood test. So anastrozole can actually boost testosterone on its own too. It's because it acts as an aromatase inhibitor. It basically blocks the conversion from testosterone to estradiol. So usually what it does in most guys is it cuts their estradiol or their estrogen in half, and it increases testosterone. It's not a really good standalone solution though, because cutting your estrogen in half does not make most men feel good. So it's really used more adjunctively as a complement to TRT, which is, I imagine, what your doctor was essentially using it for. Is sometimes when you increase testosterone through TRT, you get extra estrogen from that conversion that happens. And so in order to control that estrogen conversion and kind of balance out the hormone, so to speak, they'll usually prescribe a low dose. Sometimes will prescribe a low dose of anastrozole. Although that is interestingly controversial these days. Some folks actually believe you don't really need to do that anymore. And there's benefits to essentially having non-low levels of estrogen, especially in terms of neurocognitive functioning. But for the purposes of our blood test, we always want just like a clean baseline, right?
So that's what I want to make sure. And there's one more than Metformin. I take 2 tablets a day. Is that relative?
That's totally fine. That's obviously, for blood sugar and metabolic control. So it's just that the TRT, Clomid, and anastrozole, you just want to have that out of your system for at least a week or two before you do the blood test. And that way we know what like your essentially drug-free levels are.
Yeah.
But the supplements and basic medications like metformin shouldn't really be a problem. What are the supplements that you're taking?
I take the vitamin ADK from Bulletproof, Asprey's company, zinc with copper from his as well, and then 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day.
Yeah. So it's actually like pretty similar to our program. We actually have our own 80K supplement, so we can actually.
Yeah, I saw that. So that I was like, I'm pretty sure this is gonna save me at least time, if not money, doing this. And I'm like, well, shit, I should have done this like 3 years ago.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, ours is actually I would say more complete than his. His is an ADK supplement. Um, we ours has ADK and GG, dronegerol, which is a precursor to vitamin K, and so it's uh, a little step up, if you will. But yeah, it'll essentially replace that supplement that you're taking.
So I can stay on it now, but then once I get your stuff,
You
I
can
won't need
switch.
the other.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue, though, it would be interesting to just discontinue the supplements as well, to not create overlap with ours. Because
Yeah,
some of them linger, like vitamin D and stuff, they're fat soluble. So if you just, I mean, I wouldn't say that one's a hard requirement because those don't increase your testosterone per se, but you might see more of a response essentially if you discontinue. So I would say that one's optional, but it would be cleaner, right? Essentially, because you're one of the rare
yeah,
people that's like kind of taking some stuff on our protocol that's in our protocol already, and so you don't get like the clean effects of you. Basically, it would just tell you, okay, what are the effects of adding clomiphene on top of the supplements versus, well, what's the effect of the whole protocol and the specific dosages that we're on.
yeah.
So I was just, it's not going to hurt you to like discontinue for a week or two
I like to keep things simple, so I think what you're saying is like definitely discontinue the meds.
for sure.
Metformin's fine,
Yeah.
but even the supplements, you're saying to leave
The
them.
supplements, if they're the same supplements as the ones we're taking, then I would
Uh-huh.
say yeah, that makes sense. So like the 80K for sure, I would do. If you're just
Yeah,
taking like, well, the copper and zinc or what, not as big
yeah.
of a deal. But the ones that overlap, yeah, it might be interesting to just do
Okay.
that. I actually think it's a good principle in general. By the way, is like even though I'm obviously a fan of supplements, it's good to actually give your body a break every once in a while and discontinue them for a week or two and just cycle off. Because sometimes, and the reason for that more, it's not that it's bad to take them, but I think sometimes people don't even know if one, if they're working, but two, if they're actually causing ever any side effects. So sometimes like some weird, like people, for instance, if they take their vitamin D too late, it can mess with their sleep. And sometimes people
Yeah,
think they have chronic insomnia and they don't realize, oh, it's like because they're taking like high doses of vitamins like late in the afternoon, just like you're taking like an afternoon
yeah.
coffee. So sometimes when you just take a break for a week, you're like, oh, all of a sudden my sleep's better. Maybe maybe it was the supplement.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's interesting too, because you guys, it's still only men, right? You guys
Yeah.
don't have like a woman. My wife, she goes to the naturopath, and they're going to be doing some stuff with fertility. But I was like, I bet you there's some kind of, because she wakes up a lot at night.
Mm-hmm.
Like she thought it was to use the restroom, and she can go, but it's more like I'm awake, and I'm like, well, maybe your timing of your stuff is off. But yeah, that's easy. Cool. So yeah, I think I got another. Definitely the TRT has been I've been off for I want to say 2 weeks. Clomid, today's a week. I think I took anastrozole on Sunday, so I think I'll wait another week until I actually do the fingerprint
Yeah.
prick. Um,
So I think next Sunday you should be good.
Sunday. Okay.
Yeah, if it's last Sunday, so this or okay, if it was last Sunday, that's Sunday after next, I guess, right? Would be 2 weeks. So
2 weeks. Okay, 2 weeks.
it'd be like 10 days.
On 2 weeks instead of one.
Yeah, to be safe, like you could probably get away with a week. It just depends on like the type of test. Some of the longer acting forms of testosterone can linger
Mm-hmm.
for a while. And Nastrozole, I think in terms of, well, it's not a steroidal aromatase inhibitor. Um, so you might actually have a little bit of a rebound effect in terms of your estradiol levels will probably actually bounce upwards when you discontinue it. I'll do a little research in terms of how long it should last, but I think it should be probably out of your systems. But I would say to be safe, yeah, why don't you just do it the Sunday after next? Then 2 weeks, you'll know it's like absolutely out of your system, and
Cool.
any rebound effects should have resolved by then.
Perfect. Awesome. I can. That makes it easy. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was off on the right foot. And then I still need to join. What's the Discord community? They told me about it, but like I'm what's it like? I'll finger prick, and then it's what like I assume like a couple weeks until I get results or the
Yeah,
medicine.
so once you do your lab test, you'll send it off. They run it obviously as fast as they can, but usually I would say 10 business days or so is
Okay.
typically the turnaround time. So you'll get the results back in terms of what your baseline levels are. But you can start taking the medications, as soon as you're done taking the lab test. So if you take it, Sunday after next morning, you should obviously take it first thing when you wake up. Um, and then you can start basically thereafter. So you'll be on the meds.
Wait, are you guys sending? Because I don't think I've gotten. Well, maybe I have. I guess I haven't actually opened the package yet.
Yeah.
I got it like yesterday, the day before, but I've just been behind. So the medicine's already been sent, or
We typically
it's not
ship
based on
it.
the blood type?
No, we don't. We don't wait for the lab test result
Oh, okay.
to have it
So
come back.
it's the same for everyone.
To start with, and then
To
we
start
adjust
with.
it based on your symptoms and based on the lab test results.
Okay.
So yeah, we always start people on like a low and slow dose, but it works for the majority of people. And then some people need a little bit more, some people need a little bit less. But based on how you're feeling, and then based on your response, we'll look at your numbers. So yeah, you'll do the second lab test usually 30 days after the first one. Occasionally, there's some folks who want to adjust sooner. In that case, you'll switch and then wait another 30 days after that,
Mhm.
and then we'll retest, and then we can go from there.
Cool. Might not be a question for you, and I'm curious now. I actually paid for this. We just switched over to an HSA for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you're aware of that's covered, or
Yeah, we do work with HSA and FSA. You have to obviously work with your specific provider to see if they accept our program, but you should be able to submit for it. Yeah.
Okay, because we had been paying. I just get supplements, and I was like, oh, I think if I want to submit it, I got to get it prescribed by a doctor, which I guess technically,
Yep.
those things will be in. So, cool.
So yeah, that'll be a boon to you too, because if you're paying out of pocket for like Bulletproof's 80K supplement, and we're providing that as part of our prescribed protocol, you should be able to get both our prescription medications and our supplements actually reimbursed. The whole thing, you may be able to get reimbursed through HSA, FSA.
Yeah. Awesome. And then, well, this wasn't just supposed to be me, right? Like, this is for everyone to come to, and just I'm lucky and it's me.
Yeah. Well, we usually talk one-on-one with some folks. There's two more folks that are gonna hop on later, so I usually just go through them in one at a time.
Yeah. No, that's great. I was like, man, you're super responsive to me. You have all these people. I'm like, oh, because his medicine works. He has energy.
There you go.
It's like, I'm tapped.
Well, no, it's because you were good and you came on first, so you were first in line. There you go.
And is this 15 minutes? I think or how much time do we get?
I'm waiting till the next person hops on, so I have a little bit of flexibility in time.
So other than making sure I have a clean slate,
Yep.
doing the prick, and then starting the next day, and joining the community.
Right. Which, by the way, it's maximistribe.com/discord.
Oh yeah, I've had it logged in. Looks like there's an app. It's basically like Slack, right? Discord.
Yeah, it's like a gamified version of it. We actually just like it better because it's all the kind of new communities are using Discord. Slack is designed for work, while Discord is really designed for communities around areas of interest.
Yeah. There's one of my favorite podcasts. It's comedy based, and they keep mentioning. I'm like, what are they talking about? But I'll find out now. So so all those things that I mentioned, Discord being the last. Is there anything else that I should be aware of as someone new joining this? Because before I was like, I got my shot once a week. I didn't think about it. I pushed myself, weight training. But like, how do I make sure anything I'm missing, I guess?
Yeah, so let's just walk through all the parts of the protocol. So one, the pharmaceuticals. So as I mentioned, as soon as you do your baseline lab tests, you can hop on those. You want to take the enclomiphene, ideally in the morning, because then you can feel the energy throughout the day. And then same thing with the vitamins. You want to take those. It's easier to just take everything at the same time, so it's easy to remember. You want to just with a little bit of fat is ideal. It really helps like the absorption of the vitamin D and the other fat soluble vitamins. So yeah, just make it part of your morning routine when you have breakfast. Consume it alongside that, and don't forget to take it every day. So that, and then obviously you'll have check-ins with the doctor. When you renew, he'll ask you like how you doing, how you feeling. Is there any adjustments that need to be made, and they can adjust your dosages. And then when your lab results come back, they can help obviously interpret it, see the increase in testosterone, and if that's sufficient in terms of making you feel you're optimal. So
Okay.
that's it on the pharmaceutical side. On the health coaching side, so once you join the Discord, there's different channels. So there's a testosterone specific channel. So if you have any like product related questions, people
Mhm.
usually chat in there. But the main channel is really the hashtag coaching channel, and that's where we talk about the diet, the exercise, the sleep, the focus, relationships, all that stuff. So that's actually really important too, obviously, in terms of making sure that your testosterone is optimal. If you're not sleeping, for instance, you know, 8 hours a night, every
Yeah.
hour less you get, you're losing 10 to 15% testosterone, basically. So we really try to help people with, the behaviors that they can change. Um, and so where I would start is I wrote an actual book on maximizing your testosterone. It's at
Okay.
maximistribe.com/book. Um, it's an ebook. It's like 80 pages, but it's like really beautifully designed, and it walks through our
Oh yeah,
protocol.
I think I flipped through it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like what to eat, like how do I sleep well, what kind of physical activity do we recommend? That's really optimized for testosterone. There's a lot of books that'll tell you what to eat to lose weight, but that's actually not the same as for optimal hormone production.
Mhm.
So one interesting thing that most people don't realize, if you have excess body fat, it increases the conversion from testosterone to estradiol or estrogen. So you do want to lose excess body fat long term when it comes to making sure that you have optimal hormone output. However, if you try to lose weight too fast, like you have too much of a caloric deficit, it dramatically decreases your testosterone. So if you're doing a blood test while on a huge caloric deficit, your testosterone is going to be low. So you should just keep that in mind. So you shouldn't like start the program eating how you normally eat, like an isocaloric diet, meaning the same amount of calories you normally eat. And then you're like, oh man, I'm super jazzed. I'm going to lose a bunch of weight. And now you're cutting 500 calories a day, kind of semi starving. If you do redo your second test, it might actually not go up, even though the enclomiphene is doing its magic. Well, it's because you're like not feeding your body. And so you just want to be careful about like extreme caloric cuts, weight cuts can significantly lower hormone production. So I always just tell people, you keep that in mind
Yeah.
when you're doing the health behavior stuff. But like, and the other example is keto. Keto is not the best diet for testosterone. It's great for diabetes in terms of getting your blood sugar level down, but
Yeah.
it increases cortisol, the stress hormone, which is catabolic, and it reduces testosterone. So we do recommend lower carb diets, but we don't necessarily recommend keto. We say a little bit of carbohydrates are good just to make sure that your cortisol is not spiking too high. And so those are just two examples of
Okay,
things.
that's good to know. That's because I never went true keto, but it did work for a while. But I was like, I think I changed my gut, and I don't really do the bull. I like the bulletproof,
Hmm.
but I don't I do the intermittent fasting.
Right.
Not super consistent, but um yeah, I wondered if I while I benefited up front, if I actually did not damage, but I caused issue for myself
Hmm.
long term. I want to say I started like 7 years ago when I first read his book, and it was cool. I had a lot of energy, and I lost like 30 pounds in probably like 3 months. But then just trying to maintain that. The Is there, like when you mentioned to say breakfast and eat fat with it? Do you recommend like a 3 meals a day, or is it more about just make sure I get my calories and healthy fats and healthy protein?
Yeah, I'm a fan of the adage of the nutrient quality trumps nutrient timing. It's more important what you eat, and that's high quality, than the timing and the number of meals.
Okay.
Um, I'm generally not a fan of OMAD, or what's called 1 meal a day. It's a
Mhm.
little extreme in my opinion to like have to just eat one meal, or do it within like a really tight 2 to 4 hour window, and then fast for like 20 hours. I generally think for most people who are normal, I would say it's not super sustainable, especially
Yeah.
socially, because then it's like you can't eat with other people. And I don't know. I think we have such like a social cultural heritage around breaking bread with other people that has health benefits too. People underestimate like the value of bonding and eating together. So
Yeah.
it's hard to like quantify that, but it is psychologically and socially important. So My main thing is just like most people should just do the old school version of intermittent fasting, which is just stop eating after dinner, is what I tell people,
Yeah.
right? And that's like a normal like 16/8 kind of fast. It's
Yeah.
not extreme, but even Rhonda Patrick and other folks argue that maybe you don't actually need to do super extreme forms of fasting. Just not grazing or snacking all day may be sufficient. So if you're doing something more along the lines of that 16/8, where you're or even closer to 12/12, I would say people, you don't need to probably go more than 12/12 where you're eating within a 12-hour window, fasting for 12 hours.
Yeah.
um, there's not a lot of research that going beyond that actually has like additional incremental benefits, but that eating within 12, let's say up to 16 hours, allows you to obviously have 3 meals, if not more. Sometimes obviously bodybuilders have like 5-6 meals. As long as the quality is there, then I don't think there's actually anything inherently wrong with eating more meals, because well, if they're smaller, it's not like you're eating more, you're just breaking it up more.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. And Asprey like is an investor in Maximus, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
so he's an
you guys
investor and
argue about
advisor.
that, or does he agree?
Dave's obviously a fan of intermittent fasting. He has his own book called Fast This Way. So, I think different things like I said, are for optimal for different outcomes. We're
Yeah.
really focused at our company on hormone outcome, and so it's not evidence that intermittent fasting increases testosterone. And for our benefit, I think making sure that people are eating quality food is really more of the emphasis. So like I said, we're not like pro or against it. We're just more in terms of, I think the best diet is the one that you can stick to long term. So I take a very
Yeah.
behavioristic standpoint, which is like for most people, extreme fasting is not a sustainable behavior, and it's not as important as what you eat. So focus more on what you're eating, like super high quality food, and obviously something that's enjoyable and socially, compatible. So that's kind of my 2 cents. I wouldn't
Okay.
say it's incompatible with Dave's approach, but I think we emphasize it maybe a little bit less,
Yeah.
or have a milder version perhaps of it.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, when I started, I wouldn't have said my goal was weight loss, not necessarily energy and all that. I didn't know the difference. But I just hit 40 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, yeah, I want to be smarter about what I'm doing. And, the testosterone, it was cool. I got stronger at the gym, but I'm like, I think I told you I was just breaking out.
Yeah.
And the naturopath tried to talk. He's like, well, we can lower your dose. I'm like, yeah, but the idea of taking an injection for a long time doesn't sound great. I was
Right.
willing to experiment, but, and then so I'm glad what you said about the supplements too. Cool, man. I'll pop this in, and I'm sure you have other stuff, but I just got accepted for like the third or fourth year in a row for Arizona Pharmacy Association to present.
Okay.
I'm doing things on EQ and leadership stuff.
Amazing.
But I don't know how receptive the more traditional stuff is to your stuff. But if you ever want an introduction to the committee there, I'm happy to make an email
Awesome.
connection if you want to go. And they do like continue education units, and I know the host of their podcast is real big, or at least interested in hormone stuff, and I think he would welcome what your type of expertise.
Cool. Yeah, send me a link to his podcast. I'd love to check it out.
Yeah, I'll do that. And then, I mean, this is my first time. Do you recommend that I join these as I have questions, or is this more for newbies? This Zoom that we just did?
It's for everyone. So we have new folks. We have people who aren't on our protocol, who just want to improve themselves. And then obviously, we try to prioritize our customers just to make sure that we're attending to their needs. So if you have obviously additional questions that come up as you're on the protocol, or are you just working on the health behavior side of it, we're always happy to host folks.
Okay. Last question then, sleep related. So I took on the podcast, you had said you shouldn't have an alarm to wake up. You should more, have an alarm to go to bed. So I was trying that, or I've been doing that, I should say. And I go to bed between 9 and 10:30, probably average around 10, but sometimes earlier or later.
Sure.
And for a good month after you told me that, I was waking up like 5:45, 6, just automatically. I have an alarm that goes off at 6:30, but like more so that tells me, hey, I have so much time to get ready, go to the gym, blah blah blah. But lately, it's been waking me up, and it's not like I'm exhausted. I turn it off after the one, I get up. But in terms of the protocol, I could easily sleep 9, 8.5 to 10 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been closer to 8.5 lately.
Yeah.
Did I expect that to stay the same? Change? Hard to say.
I don't think there's any research that changes your sleep needs that I'm aware of. So, I mean, 8.5 is not unreasonable. I mean, usually the recommended range is between 7 and 9 hours.
Yeah,
So that's well within that. And there's individual variability in terms of how much people can sleep. It's also contingent on like your mental and physical activity levels. Guys who do obviously very like mentally taxing work, doing a lot of physical activity, especially if you're working out a lot or have a laborious job, you probably need closer to 8 to 9 hours rather than like the 7 to 8 that a lot of pretty sedentary kind of office workers do. So I wouldn't say it's unusual. Now the 10 and a half, that's like obviously on the upper end of the range. I assume that's
yeah,
occasional, not like every day.
yeah. I haven't. I probably haven't slept more than 9 hours in 2 3 months. I've been doing really good because if anything, I wanted to be more like Dave Asprey of getting a more efficient seven
Right.
hours, and I had a damn Aura ring that made me realize how far away I was from that. So I ended up taking it off about 7 months ago.
Mm,
I am gonna put it back on, but it was more. I've had those days where I woke up and I was like, I can't wait to work and talk to people. And on a scale of 10, that's awesome, and 0, I just want to go back to bed.
right.
I'm probably averaging like a 6 to a 7. And the days when I was waking up 5:45 on
Right.
my own, it felt like an 8. And
Mm,
so that's more of what I want. It's less. I mean, it would be nicer to sleep less, but it's more of I want to wake up. And
right.
I've never really. I know what's bad for it.
Right.
Eating shitty food, alcohol, but I never really found the how do I make it good. That was always a mystery. Still is.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. The goal is not to sleep less. That's like a weird fantasy that I think people have is like, oh, if I can sleep less, or you'll sleep when you're dead, I
Yeah.
can be more productive. But I was like, I doubt it, because if you're eating, if you're sleeping 8 hours, yeah, 16 hours for the rest of the day. There's no one who's 100% efficient with those 16 hours. There's a lot more you can do in terms of improving your efficiency and also just like figuring out where your time is best leveraged rather than trying to cut out sleep. It's like the last thing you should ever do in terms of trying to enhance productivity. Because I don't know anyone who can work 16 hours and especially do with like a full concentration, focus, and creativity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't say that's the goal. But to your point, when you leave enough window to sleep, where okay, let's say you actually do need closer to 8 to 9 hours a day, well, give yourself that window of time where if you're going to bed, let's say closer to 10:30 and you're waking up, at 6:30, you're only giving yourself, well, 7.5 to 8 hours. Maybe your body wants, I don't know, 8.5 to your point.
Yeah.
If you join, if you go to sleep earlier, closer to 9 to 10, now that window is like, okay, now I'm giving myself 8 to 9 hours. Hopefully my body will wake up before the alarm clock and get the right amount that it knows it needs. And that'll vary
Yeah.
on a day-to-day basis depending on, your activity levels, your stress, etc. So that's the main thing I advocate to people. Just give your body enough of a opportunity or window to do what it knows it needs to do best. But when you
Yeah.
force it and you say, I'm only giving you 6 to 7 hours, good luck. And of course, you wake up with an alarm clock, you're always just kind of cutting it off at the end, and your body's essentially chronically has a sleep debt that accumulates over time and obviously makes us feel very lethargic. So, the best thing I
Yeah.
always think that people can do for improving their energy is to pay off that sleep debt. There's a really great app actually if you want an alternative to Aura. It's called Rise. It's a sleep tracking app. It's actually clever. It doesn't even need a device. It triangulates the data just based on your phone, which is
Uh-huh.
unfortunate when you're a phone addict like everyone is. From the last time you touch it to the first time you touch it in the morning, it basically knows how long you slept. Assuming you sleep through the night. Now, even if you
Yeah.
don't sleep through the night, if you wake up and use your phone, well, it knows that you're awake during there too. But you can manually correct it as well. Like it's not perfect, obviously, because it's not,
Yeah.
automatically tracking your sleep. It's kind of like figuring it out based on your phone movement. But you can correct it. It's pretty easy. You just like expand the window and you're like, okay, I slept from 10 to 5. I woke up for an hour. I slept from 6 to 8. All right. So I know I got whatever, 9 hours total, even though it was a 10-hour window. And then what the cool thing about it is it'll actually calculate your sleep debt. It'll say, oh, you have 10 hours of sleep debt. And based on the amount that you're getting every single night, is that going down? And so you're improving your energy levels?
Oh,
Or is it
yeah.
going up and you're accumulating debt? And so the goal, it almost becomes this gamified thing, is obviously pay down your debt, just like you do financially. And, most people, when they pay down their debt, it gets pretty close to zero. I'd say if you're within 0 to 5 hours of sleep debt, you're probably feeling pretty good. When it's 10 plus hours, that's when people get chronically tired and fatigued.
Yeah.
It also maps your circadian rhythm, so it'll tell you when your kind of peaks and troughs are in terms of your energy. So, for instance, most people, they have an energy peak in the morning, like right around 9, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then after lunch, you get that post afternoon slump at like 2, 3 o'clock. It's usually actually 7 hours after you wake up is the lowest point in your circadian rhythm. It's actually the perfect time to take a nap or a siesta if you do have the time and opportunity, obviously, in terms of your circumstances and environment to do that. Taking a 20 to 45 minute nap, no more than that, because otherwise you start to get into
Yeah.
deep sleep and it'll disrupt your ability to sleep later at night. Can be helpful for giving people energy, but otherwise it also tell you, okay, in the evening you're strongest at 7, 8 o'clock. It's a good time to work out, a good time to have sex.
Yeah.
Testosterone and growth hormone are higher, and so you can almost like plan and optimize your activities around your circadian rhythm and you're basically your chronobiology. So it's kind of cool for that reason as well, as it kind of like predicts your energy levels based on your rhythm and sleeping. Are you an early bird? Are you a night owl, so to speak? And so you can
Yeah.
almost time your life accordingly.
Yeah, I think before I got married and stuff, I think I was at like 11 to 7 guy.
Mm-hmm.
And with my wife, she likes to go to bed earlier. She's more, I think, whatever the person who doesn't sleep. And so we've kind of averaged out. And so 9 to 6 isn't too bad. For a long time, I was trying to do like 9 to 5, and I can force it, but it was never. Sleeping more was always worse than sleeping less. Like I always felt worse after
Mm-hmm.
it, but like you said, with the physical labor, like I'm at my computer most of the day,
Sure.
and it's, that's why I miss the in-person training, because it's a different energy. Like you mentioned about eating, when I'm with people, I'm not staring at my phone or on
Right.
TV. It's you consume it differently. So, but cool, man. I'm excited. Yeah, I can't wait to track this stuff, and I just joined the community as we were talking, and um, cool. You just it's every Thursday you do this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, we're super happy to have you. Excited to see how you respond. And then yeah, we do the radio show every Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m. Pacific. Kind of coach people through different scenarios like you're talking through, answer questions like you have. And then otherwise, we're focused on the community. So that's obviously all asynchronous. So you can just log in whenever, even if you're it's like late at night. And it's not just me. There's a bunch of other folks. We just brought on JT, who's popular Twitter personal trainer, fitness guru. So he provides a lot of coaching around that sort of diet and physical activity, because he designs custom workout routines for people. So he's a great resource if you want to especially like up your workout game and get tips and pointers. He's one of the nicest and most jacked dudes that I know in terms of like he's a body weight strength guy, so he's like amazing at gymnastics, rings, and pull ups and all kinds of
Yeah.
those movements. And then there's other guys obviously who are just part of the community as well, and they have their own expertise or just life experiences. Like we were talking about
Yeah.
kettlebells the other day, and a lot of people have, some people had done it, some people hadn't. They had a lot of good tips, and that's what I like about the community is it's just like guys supporting one another.
Yeah. No, I love it. He's a JT, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'm never super excited to join new apps, but but when it's a practical person, so there's a good reason. I feel like you guys are giving away a lot. Like the price is really good, but like this seems pretty premium experience of the quality of information. So I'm excited.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I think it's actually like people sometimes they're like, oh man, $200 a month is a lot, and I'm like, well, first of all, like you're a guy. Like, how much were you paying for your naturopath or
yeah,
HRT?
exactly. I was doing that, and I think the shot was like 35 a week, just for the testosterone, not to mention the anastrozole, which I think insurance covered. It might have been somewhere between like 20 and $50 for like a month's, maybe 2 months worth. And then not to mention the follow-ups and all the other stuff that I was doing. So, but like you throw, when I saw the supplements, I didn't realize the supplement part was, I was like, oh, there's, I think Aspre's ADK and the other stuff. I was like, it adds up, and it's, I think a 30-day supply. And I'm happy with that, or at least I've been on it and really haven't thought twice about it. So I was telling my buddy who I was trying to go to a naturopath, like, I can't afford it. I was like, if you really should go check it out. And you're going to get different advice than the typical doctor stuff, because he's going to be 40 as well. But I'm like, dude, you can afford $200 a month, especially if it's going to make you feel better and give you community and give you all these other things. So I'm always the guinea pig. I always wanted to be a lab rat and go test things out. There's some other people that the same pharmacist guy that I'll send you the podcast link. I took him to a Bulletproof conference, the one I think right before COVID. I think it was 2019, and I wanted to know what he thought. Hey, you learned traditional medicine, and what'd you think of this? But he loved it. It's not really his thing, but he was a fan and interested in everything. But cool. I mean, I could ask you a million other questions, but I'm sure
do you remember how much like your naturopath charges just for the visits or the follow-ups?
They just raised it. Let me see what it is. I think I want to say it's like $195, and now it went up
per visit.
Per visit.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a great comparison, right? Because you're talking about, the anastrozole is 140. Sorry, the TRT shots are 140. The anastrozole is 20. That's 160. Plus 40 for the supplement, the ADK supplement you're getting from Bulletproof. That's 200 for the meds and supplements alone, and then add 200 for the doctor visits. So that's like $400 right there. So you're paying. Yeah. So I always tell people, like, if you can try to price shop, but basically almost all the HRT clinics that are out there are going to be charging you somewhere around $200 to $300 a month. So it's quite competitive. And then, secondly, nobody's offering like the whole suite of experiences like we do. So we're, soup to nuts, providing not only the prescription medications and supplement, but the health coaching as well. And people underestimate the value of that, where sure, you can, like read all your advice online or get, some ebook, but you can do what you're doing now, which is like, you can sit down with me for half an hour, and I charge a lot in terms of my private practice.
Exactly. Well, that's what when I first did I went to Bulletproof, and it was more like a trip. It wasn't like I was playing. It was, going to Vegas, you're not going there to really do investment, you're gambling. But I was just playing, and I'm like, man, I would pay a coach to help me put this all together, but there's a lot of people who would take my money and say they could help me put it all together, but to actually, I feel like if you're not, you've said it actually many times, I'm not sure about this, I have to go research it. That's not the default saying of most experts of, I don't know, let me go find out. And even with, like, when I got the Aura ring, I'm like, there's all this data, I don't know what to fucking do with it. And I actually interviewed this young guy in Silicon Valley area. He was starting like a coaching service in tandem with the Apple Watches and all that stuff. But I was like, I just wanted to, what can I afford that a doctor is not necessarily going to prescribe me that could make me feel better?
Right.
When my wife, she worked at American Express, and about 7 years ago, she got burned out, and I was like, quit. I go, the money's not worth it. It's not like you're saving a lot anyway. I go, take a hiatus. You are my safety net. I'll be yours. My business was growing. And, but I'm like, you need to take care of yourself, because we had the shitty Obamacare. But I'm like, as long as we have that, worst case, at least there's something. But it hit me. I was like, oh, I might not be sick, but I'm not as healthy as I could be.
Right.
And that's when I started looking at Bullet. I was like, oh, there's other things I can do, and this and that. And it can be really expensive, but I also don't think it has to be really expensive. And I wasn't even looking for you guys, but I was, when you, it's funny because you found, or your PR people found me, or the podcast, and I was like, at first, to be honest with you, I don't think I told you. I was like, wait, what? How does he want my show? And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'd have you on my show. But then when I looked, because I kind of grazed it. I was like, oh, this is cool. Maybe one day I'll try it instead of my TRT.
Mm-hmm.
And then that second go around, I'm like, it's only this much. And I was like, shit, I should have started this a couple months ago. So yeah, man, I mean, it's not contingent on me liking it, but so far it's easy to pimp out stuff that I think is good for
Mm-hmm.
people.
Right.
And I've already told probably like 5-10 people I'm doing it. And so yeah, I'll be sending people your way, especially if I, become Superman. But I feel good, but I know I'm getting older,
Sure.
and that's where, like on my 40th birthday, I pulled my hamstring playing basketball against my 17-year-old nephew or a cousin, and but I'm also like, yeah, I'm getting older, but I don't have to be dumber. I didn't warm up in the way that I know I probably should have, and taking it easy, didn't go stupid at the gym, and it's been 2 weeks, and it's like 80% back to normal, but I don't want to risk it again. So
that's one of the interesting things people find is you can actually maintain your strength quite a bit into older age, especially endurance. Actually, endurance athletes are better in their 40s, interestingly, because I think you build up your mitochondria and your capacity. But what people lose when they get older is the recovery, right? So when you are lifting in the gym, it's before you could like be hungover, still go to a gym session and do all kinds of crazy stuff, from the vices of youth. But when you're older and you get an injury, you need more time to recover. It takes longer to heal. There's soreness takes longer to resolve in terms of delayed onset muscle soreness. And that's actually one of the good things about elevated testosterone is it really actually helps the recovery and healing process. So it's sure it'll make you stronger and put on more muscle, which is the stereotypical thing, but it's actually underappreciated, the help that it provides for sort of healing and recovery, and so you're bouncing back quicker. That's like really interestingly, if you talk about people in the bodybuilding community, although they're obviously doing something very different pharmacologically. I always tell people you can't follow their routines. They do way more volume because their testosterone levels are sky high, or at least their testosterone-like levels are sky high from the anabolic steroids that they're taking, which allows them to just do more work. They just put in crazy amounts of volume, and they can recover quickly because of all the compounds in their body. You can't go do 10 sets of 10 reps on the bench like Jay Cutler was doing back in the day, because you're not enhanced, so to speak. Now our protocol, like I said, it's not going to make you a bodybuilder, but it will at least get your levels to same level of recovery, I would argue, as like someone in their 20s, or at least what you were when you're in your 20s. And so I think it's very helpful for that regard.
That's cool. Yeah, it's funny too, because I remember when I think 6 months into Bulletproof, I'm playing basketball against a friend who I'm better at basketball than him, but he's always been a better athlete. He does CrossFit, all this stuff. And I'm just running circles around him. I mean, I hadn't worked out in years, I hadn't done cardio, but I had dropped those pounds, and I had this, and I'm like, something's wrong here. And then I realized I have better cardio on the basketball court than I did when I was a teenager. Now, I was always a fat teenager. And but I'm like, I can run faster today than I did before. But again, I was a 90s kid who played too many video games, etc. But there's part of me of like, well, what else can I do that I'm better at, or that I should be going down compared to society's expectations? But also, my wife and I were going to have kids much later in life. There's all these other things. So I'm like, I have the time to figure these things out.
Right.
It's a lot harder when like my parents were postal workers in Phoenix, Arizona. They don't, even if they had this stuff, I'm sure it would have, or my dad anyway, would have made a difference. But no, this is cool, man. This is very accessible. You guys are available it's only like 10 states, right?
We're actually in 15 now. We just launched in New York and Ohio last week, but that covers actually like 50% of the country. So we're halfway there, and hopefully we'll be totally nationwide, in about a year or so.
That's how many people in the company?
We're about 20 folks in terms of our employees, and we're growing quickly. We just brought on a new doctor, in fact, which we're excited about, and we'll be hiring many more. That's
awesome, man. Well, cool. I'll think of 20 more questions, and I'll probably join again.
Sounds good.
Thanks, man. This is plenty of info, but yeah, it's almost like for my newbie brain, I kind of want like a Candyland roadmap. Sure. But you guys have sent plenty of information, but I'm kind of like, what do I gotta do? What do I gotta do? But I didn't want to rush in and take a test with bad results.
Sense.
So that was my main concern. And you and someone else was helping, but I wanted to be for sure before I move forward. So I appreciate it.
No, it's great questions. It's obviously great chatting and catching up. And look forward to seeing your results and also working with you in the community and seeing your contribution there.
Yeah, you got it, man. All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We had a psychology question topic. I have a question regarding finance and wealth. Can seeing parents or family members struggle for money when you're young program people in adulthood to have limited beliefs about building wealth? For example, I know that now I have to invest my money and have more than enough in emergency funds to last me a long while, yet feel somewhat worried about quote-unquote potential events that could strip my hard work away. Any thoughts on growing up financially insecure or your parents are not financially secure?
Yeah, it's actually a great question. And even though the show is obviously not about personal finances, I think people underappreciate the impact of finances on health. Like, for instance, we certainly know that your relationship or interpersonal functioning is one of the key determinants of health. And what's the number one thing that people argue about in relationships? It's money. And so, taking care of as much of that as you can and making sure that, at least, you're not under financial duress or crisis can reduce your relationship stress, which obviously affects your health. So people should actually think about their finances as maybe like the fifth health behavior, in the sense that maybe it's not something you do every day, but it's something that you want taken care of, so it's not adding additional stress to your life. Now, the specific question the caller had was about, okay, like, can the programming that you get from your parents cause sort of self-limiting beliefs in adulthood? And I say, yes, absolutely. There's a lot of folks in particular who were raised by parents that were particularly frugal, especially if your parents kind of grew up in the Great Depression era, if they come from another country and they're immigrated and had to do without for a lot. That really, I think, in a lot of ways has lasting psychological impact on people. There's a great experiment that was done in Minnesota. It was like I forgot what it's called, but something like the Minnesota Starvation Experiment. They put these guys, I think it was around one of the world wars, one of the major wars, on a severely calorically limited diet where there was almost like testing the effects of semi-starvation. Like, if America ran out of food and we had to like cut everyone's calories by a quarter, like what would that look like? And these guys got obviously very emaciated and very, very thin. They ended the research study. They were looking at what the psychological and physical effects of that were. And then, they went back to eating, normally. But here's the interesting thing. They followed these people for years, and they were obsessed with food for the rest of their lives. Because apparently, if you starve someone for a year, it has like almost a lasting imprint on them. And they're like, man, is there going to be another starvation time or food shortage? And so they would just like be really almost compulsive about food and consuming it. And I think I share that story because it's the same with finances. If you've ever gone through not having money, not being able to pay your rent, a bankruptcy, or just an incredible amount of financial stress, it lasts and lingers. And even if later on in life you become middle class, even upper class, a lot of the folks who, even though they've made it, that never leaves them, because they're like, to your point, what if some crazy thing happens? What if there's another recession? What if, I have a lawsuit or a divorce or other life circumstance that changes my lot in life, and obviously causes a lot of anxiety. And I think those can be self-limiting beliefs. Now, some of it is like a defensive pessimism, so to speak, in that a little bit of like, skepticism is a good thing, right? We've been in the longest, bull run economy for the longest while that we've seen. Crypto is crazy up. And I think a lot of young people who've never been through a recession assume that the good times will last forever. They clearly will not. Who knows if we're on the verge of a recession, but it's certainly not going to continue this way forever. And we're obviously feeling the effects of inflation right now. So I think it's important, given all of these things, to be a little obviously cautious and pragmatic. And I do think, to your point, it's really good to put away savings for at least 6 months minimum. But it can be self-limiting because, well, what does that mean in terms of the opportunity cost, right? So a lot of folks that are raised, in a household where, money is tight, they're not thinking about, for instance, spending money to save time, right? And I see this all the time. Like, people feel guilty for hiring a cleaner. People feel guilty for hiring someone to do their laundry, fix their car, do things that obviously they can do themselves. But the really question is, well, what's the opportunity cost, right? If you're a professional and you can make 50 to 100 plus dollars an hour doing, contract work, and you can pay someone $10 an hour to mow your lawn, why should you do that? Unless you enjoy it or you want to teach your son a lesson, that's fine. That's a different sort of ROI that you're getting from it. But most people don't particularly enjoy doing like household labor or tasks. There's other things that they'd rather be doing, and so it totally makes sense to outsource these things. I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss' 4-hour work week, outsourcing your life, when it's appropriate. And certainly if you have the financial means to do so, spending money to buy back your time is one of the wisest things you could do ever. But if you grew up in a household where that seems anathema, like, oh, why would you pay someone to do something when you can do it yourself? That becomes exactly one of those self-limiting beliefs that we're talking about. And so you have to kind of grow up out of that. And it's hard sometimes when, it's been decades that you've learned to do that and you do your own dishes and all that other stuff. And it's not to say don't take care of, your own business or not at least know how to do stuff yourself. But, if it can save you hours of time a week and that time can be better spent in a way that's more meaningful and fulfilling. And like, let's say you're spending that on quality time with your partner, you're probably going to argue less because then it's not bickering about who's cleaning the house. It's like, all right, fine. We pay someone $100 every 2 weeks. And then we don't have to argue about it. And then we can go on a date night. And that's probably going to have a lot more benefit to your relationship than, the $50 a week that you're saving and the stress that it's causing. So if you can obviously afford it, that's a privilege that obviously doesn't apply for everyone, but that's just a good example of a self-limiting belief. Other examples is just like, being able to invest the money, right? A lot of people sometimes, Great Depression era, run on banks, don't trust banks. They don't trust, they put money under their mattress, so to speak. Obviously, that's a very outdated mode of thinking. But, you should find safe and reasonable investment vehicles so that your money can compound and you can build interest over time. So if you do notice some of those self-limiting beliefs from your parents, as I mentioned, some of it may be defensive pessimism and rational thinking, but a lot of it may prevent you from, spending your time in better places and also building wealth by investing in a healthy way. So I would definitely, look to other people other than your parents as the templates for how you should spend your money and invest it in order to, be able to move on. Because the last thing I'll say on this is, I think every parent wants their child to do better than them. And so even though they may have self-limiting beliefs that they have themselves or have passed on to you, I think ultimately they do want to see you financially and psychologically secure. And so being able to learn from other folks, ultimately will make them happy in the end.
I guess to end this episode, to finalize with a more psychological topic, based on the Skinnerian psychological model, is free will an illusion and everything we do is just based on cognitive conditioning?
Yeah, it's a very, very philosophical question. So for the folks that are listening and may not have heard of the Skinnerian psychological model, it's just a fancy word for behaviorism. So most people know of behaviorism from the story of Pavlov's dogs, right? That you can train a dog or any mammal that, when you ring a bell, they'll learn to salivate when they know that food is coming. And even when you remove the food, they automatically still salivate at the ring of the bell because you've classically conditioned them to associate, obviously, an unconditioned stimulus, the bell ringing, to become a conditioned stimulus, which is, oh, bell means food is coming. And so you can extrapolate that and be like, well, is everything that we do basically a product of conditioning, right? Like when we get a push notification or an alert on our phone, we get a little bit of a dopamine buzz because we're anticipating a message or a juicy, clickbait story. And that obviously gets us to engage. And so, if you extrapolate that further, you could be like, well, is there any free will? If we're all just like a ping pong ball that's batted around. And here's what I think. Obviously, I think maybe we have less free will than we probably think, because I do think behaviorism and conditioning is quite powerful. Like the fact that most of us pick up our phone 100 plus times a day is just pure conditioning at work. And oftentimes it's not conscious. Like you just pull out your phone even without a stimulus because there's an internal stimulus. You're like bored, lonely, angry, tired, or anxious in some way. But I don't think that means we have no free will whatsoever. Or maybe as a pragmatist, I'll put it this way as a kind of final departing thought. It's important to believe that you have free will. We can have a philosophical debate about if that's true or how much that's true. But we do know from the psychological literature that something called internal locus of control, which is basically the belief that you can determine the outcome of your life, right? I can shape my destiny. I am the captain of my ship. I'm the master of my life destiny. Those people do better in life. Because if you don't, you have external locus of control, which is, well, my life is dictated by whether it's conditioning, the economy, other people. I can't change my trajectory. Well, you're not going to be very motivated to do anything. If you're stuck in like a low class, state of living or a job that you hate or a relationship that you dislike, and you feel like, well, this is the best I can do. I can't really do anything about it. This is the life I was born into and I can't change that. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Versus if you have agency, right? You're like, I can determine, at least for the most part, my life, even if that's less true in reality than you think it is, even if it's, let's say, 25% true in reality, but you think it's 70% true. Sure, you're gonna shoot for the stars, but you'll still land on the moon. You'll still get further than if you had, external locus of control and you don't believe that you can do anything. So I think it's actually really important to believe in free will and believe that, you can shape your life in a lot more ways that you can choose. Now, I don't think we should have like a narcissistic, grandiose fantasy that everyone can be rich and famous and get everything that they want. I don't think that's true, and I think a lot of people fall in their 30s when they fall short of that. There's if you read Iron John by Robert Bly, he talks about sort of the natural course of disillusionment that's necessary in a man's life across his life trajectory. But net, I do think it's important really to believe in yourself and that you can shape your life destiny. And so regardless of the philosophical literature on free will, I think the psychological answer is you have to believe that you can shape your life and your life will 100% be better because of self-fulfilling prophecy when you do that. All right, we are coming up on 7 o'clock. Really, really great questions today. Thanks for our caller who just joined our protocol and had some questions about what we're doing. You can check us out at MaximusTribe.com. That's our King Protocol that optimizes your testosterone through prescription pharmaceuticals and health coaching. Like I said, we're available in 15 states. About half the U.S. population will be expanding more soon. So you can check out what we're doing there. And you can join us every single week on this podcast. It's at Thursday at 6 o'clock. And we can continue the conversation on our online community. So you can join the Maximus Tribe, which is the name of our community, at maximustribe.com/Discord. We have a pretty active group of 1,500 guys who are all focused on mutual improvement in terms of being their best. And so we can continue the chat over there. Thank you everyone for your time. Have a very happy Thursday. I hope your spring has gotten off to a fantastic start and that you continue to kick ass and take names in your life. Take care.